What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Cool Colas here, and you are now tuning into a new episode of the Pro-Black Blurred Kingdom Podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be breaking down the Miles Morales. We're also going to be going a little bit into the comics too, but we want to specifically talk about the disrespect that has been done, or that is continuously done, to foundational Black Americans in this series. Miles Morales had two parents, Rio Morales and Jefferson Davis. Rio Morales is part of a trope that I would call the ambiguous Black trope, mostly because it's hard to tell whether or not she's a white Hispanic, a Black Hispanic, or somewhere in between, because they seem to change up her race and her skin tone in every other series, every other iteration. Jefferson Davis is clearly a foundational Black American male. But notice, Miles' last name is actually Morales and not Davis. If his name had been Miles Davis, then he would have been named after the famous foundational Black American jazz musician who was a trumpeter, a band leader, and a composer. He was known as one of the most decorated and influential figures in jazz history. That is who Miles Morales would have been named after, but they chose specifically not to give him that very powerful name. The reason why is because they were doing a lot of subtle things in these movies to disrespect foundational Black Americans, starting by trying to move him as far as possible away from that culture. You can even see it in the very beginning of the first movie, where Miles Morales has this Hispanic music that's playing in the background while he's walking down the street and going to school and all this other stuff. The reason why they're doing that is because they want to put emphasis on the fact that he is a Latino. They want to emphasize that that is a very important part of his culture. They're almost bringing you away from the fact that he's a foundational Black American, and that's the piece of himself that he embraces. And we're going to kind of go into why that is an issue. The problem with that is they're setting the tone for the way these movies are going to slowly try to eliminate, disrespect, or demean the foundational Black American part of his culture. Now, look at his name just alone. The name Miles Morales shows a couple different things. For one, it shows that he took his mother's last name, which is extremely atypical in most cultures when it comes to the relationship between the mother, the father, and the offspring. Now, that's typically even more ridiculous when you think about a married couple. Even in Hispanic cultures, most have it where you have hyphenated last names if they do anything that's different than just having one last name. Usually it'll be hyphenated. But in this case, they say, oh no, Davis can't be in that bad boy at all. It just has to be Morales. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to uphold and pay homage to the fact that he was Hispanic. And they wanted to totally rid you of any type of idea that Davis was a piece of his lineage that he honored. Now, some of you will be like, it's just a movie. It's just a movie. It's just a last name. It's not that serious. You know, you get to babbling like a bitch, but let's just kind of keep it a buck. The reality is that they did it on purpose. And you know they did it on purpose because they even explained why they had that as his last name, because other people did see that and they saw that it's abnormal for a child to take on just their mother's last name. Now, if you've done something abnormal in your own life, I'm not hating, but what I'm saying is that you shouldn't uplift the exception to the rule as if it justifies a deeper agenda. Now, let's talk about this a little bit further here. There was actually something stated that said that the reason why Miles Morales has the last name Morales instead of Davis is because that was the name of his grandfather, who was abusive to his father and was a bad person. So they're already just throwing shade on the foundational Black Americans that were in Miles Morales' family. Even his father, when you think about it, notice that he didn't really take a big liking to his dad. he respected him, and you can kind of see that too. And they try to show that, but I even believe to some extent that was a token gesture, that his dad was a motivating force for him. They did that as a token gesture because it doesn't justify, nor does it clean up all the other stuff that I'm talking about here. Even making his dad a police officer was already a gesture in which they were trying to demonize foundational Black American culture, because of the fact that they wanted to show that he was a part of a group of people who have in modern times been considered an evil group of individuals who have gone rogue from protecting citizens to actually doing harm to them, specifically doing harm to Black citizens and police brutality. So the idea that he's affiliated with that, they're affiliating him with race soldiers as if this is not a racial crime. This is something that even Black American men will get into as well too. So that's also an issue because they're affiliating him with being a part of a police union as if to associate that with the stigma that police officers have gotten because of the way that these race soldiers have gone out here and have brutalized and killed and done great harm to Black people with impunity for reasons that they did not deserve. The next thing to consider is the character Aaron Davis. Think about how he was really Prowler. The idea that the one person that Miles respected and loved and really just took a strong liking to was a Black American male who already was seen as a degenerate by his father and actually wasn't a degenerate. Matter of fact, not only was he a degenerate, he also was working for Kingpin. So there was a white supremacist aspect going on in there too. You have Kingpin, who is notoriously, in this case, an allegory for being a white supremacist. And he has a Black tool that's doing his dirty work. And if you really pay attention to what Professor Black Truth has said in one of his videos, or he said this in multiple videos, when white supremacists are done with their tools, they break them. And this is exactly what happened with the Aaron Davis character, especially considering that Kingpin ended up killing Aaron Davis when he found out that the Spider-Man that he was chasing in Miles Morales was Miles Morales and that he himself was Prowler. That reveal in that moment where he realized, oh, shit just hit the fan, Kingpin killed him off. Because at that point he was compromised because now his feelings were involved because it was his nephew. So now you got a couple different things here. You got the name Miles Morales that is being used instead of Davis because the origins of it are that it's a name that has disrespectful honor because the granddad was abusive. You have the dad who's now associated with police officers and is not really taken a liking to in the very beginning of the movie. Then you have the uncle who was a degenerate, and his degeneracy is actually him being a tool for white supremacy. So you have those different aspects there. So that alone shows that there is this major form of disrespect that's going on in the Miles Morales movie to foundational Black Americans. And really, they kind of put on real big for the whole Latino thing when you think about it, because remember too, like his mom didn't really have a whole lot of lines. She was just there to be a husk for the way that they could disrespect the character. Because from my perspective, when you think about it, all she did was speak Spanish, and they were trying to make sure that they Hispanicked him up as much as they possibly could. See, the problem with white society is that they really truly don't want to give Black characters true representation, or Black people true representation. They want to be able to profit off of them pandering. They want to be able to pacify Black people so they're not complaining about having representation. They want to be able to disprove this idea that they could be racist because they portrayed a Black character, even if that Black character wasn't authentic. And let me even go into that too. Miles Morales is one of those characters who is somewhat of a diversity husk. Like, he's this character who, because he's Black, you get to throw a lot of other agendas and tropes and things like that onto him. That's why he was interested in interracial dating. That's why they also made him Hispanic as well too, so he could be a big diversity husk. And then you also had this idea too that he actually is a mantle pass character. So let's think about this too. Let me correct what I said too. Not interracially dating. He was swirling. Interracially dating and swirling are two different concepts. So let me correct myself on that. But going back, let's look at the other aspect of the fact that he's a mantle pass. He's a character that started off based off of Spider-Man. And Spider-Man was a white character. We were talking about Peter Parker. He was the popularized Spider-Man character. And he was turned into a black character in Miles Morales. They just changed the name, they changed the story, the way that he looked, and all this other stuff. So that's an example of a mantle pass, because mantle passes are when they keep the husk of the character the same, like the shell of the character. They keep that the same, but they change all the other aspects. So he still has a spider suit. He still has spider powers. The origin story is kind of similar even too, but they just made him a different character and they made him black. That was what they changed there. So there's a lot going on with the Miles Morales character in general. They didn't want him to just be a foundational black American character who was a standalone and had their own powers separate from any other superhero, especially white superheroes that had already existed. So that's really just a lack of originality. Now let's think about the second movie. The second movie was problematic for a couple different reasons. We won't get too much into Gwen Stacy because I know a lot of people are going to think I'm going to talk about that. Gwen Stacy was a problem, and she was mostly a problem because she was a white savior after she done did a whole bunch of Karen shit. But we'll get into her another time. Let me say that. The other issue that I had was that if you remember that party that they had for Miles Morales' dad, I kind of saw something weird where it seemed to me like they were trying to maybe make it seem like the dad's last name was Morales now as well too. So they're really doing their due diligence to erase the foundational black American side of his culture. Like they're doing everything they can to eliminate it, even to the point of now erasing his dad from that ideal. And to some extent, even emasculating him as a black man. But we're just going to say at the very least that they're trying to basically delete his foundational black American culture in every way that they possibly can. Now, the one thing that they did in the second movie that showed that they were trying to, in my opinion, create a happy medium point where they were trying to relate to black society while also re-traumatizing them was with the Miguel situation. Now, let me tell you about this fool Miguel. Miguel's bitch ass. I think I said this on an Instagram post, but I don't know who's a bigger bitch. The Miguel that was on This Is Us that was sitting there fucking Rebecca after she was married to his best friend, or the Miguel that we see in the Across the Spiderverse movie. I'm not sure who's a bigger bitch. I really did not like the Miguel character. This dude was literally on some tether shit. This dude literally made his own Spider-Verse after not being a Spider-Man himself. So he really fucked shit up from the get-go. And he said, I spent all my life and all my time trying to correct the issue of keeping the Spider-Verse all in a perfect alignment. So he basically was not a Spider-Man from the get-go, tried to pretend to be a Spider-Man, and he started taking these weird-ass steroids in order for him to actually act like he's a Spider-Man, only for him to get mad at Miles Morales because of the fact that he randomly got spider powers and he quote-unquote wasn't supposed to. Again, this man was already a bootleg ass Spider-Man. I mean, this man literally was the great value Spider-Man. That's why I said his ass should be called Spider Bite. Like, he's not even a real fucking Spider-Man. And this dude was sitting there getting mad at Miles, saying, you shouldn't be here. You are a mistake. But if you really pay attention to what he said there, that really was somewhat of a testimony to how a lot of tethers come over from other countries. They come to America and they get created with this dollar and a dream narrative. And then when they do that, they're made to seem like individuals who were able to make it despite their terrible circumstances. And they're not sure what happened with black people. So what they do is they pretend to be honorary white supremacists because the white supremacists themselves lift them up and use them against the rest of black society. And they go along with it. They give them benefits and they do all these things. And they basically use all that energy to attack black people as if they actually are Americans themselves. And so Miguel relates to that because Miguel is not really a Spider-Man, but he's pretending to be one. And now that he's convinced himself that he is an actual Spider-Man, he can pull rank on people who he believes are not Spider-Man. It's the same way as Tethers coming over here, believing they're American, although they are clearly immigrants, and thinking that they can pull rank and talk about issues that are related to foundational Black Americans, and then talking about how we need to go back to Africa and all this other stuff. So that was kind of similar when he was saying, you don't belong here, you're a mistake, and that type of thing. Because Miles Morales technically was a real Spider-Man, and he couldn't help that a spider bit him. He couldn't help that shit. So for Miguel to go around on this tirade and basically be like, oh, well, you're not a real Spider-Man. You're a mistake. We have to get rid of you. We have to eliminate you, and that type of thing. Like, we have to correct the timeline. And, well, we have to correct the timeline by getting rid of your dad. That's the only way we can get rid of this because you're a mistake. That was his way of basically imposing himself as an honorary white supremacist, because that's what they do when they come over here. A lot of those Tethers, like, especially like, and it's funny how Miguel O'Hara is actually Hispanic. It's like they come over here and they tell us that, we aren't really American. We're really Africans and we need to go back to Africa. And then it's like, well, you came over here and the only thing that you came over here was with $5 and some taquitos. And you now want to be honorary white supremacist and just be big time racist. So they try to pull that. And notice too, everybody else was trying to get Miles Morales out the paint because they believed that he was a part of the issue with why the Spider-Verse wasn't working, while they ignored the simple idea that Miguel, again, was not a real Spider-Man, tried to make himself into a real Spider-Man by taking damn steroids and sitting there acting like looking like a fake ass version of motherfucking Mario Lopez. And then on top of that too, he was sitting there trying to get angry because he said that he messed up this system that he created. No, sir, you inserted yourself into this system as a fake Spider-Man, as a spider bite. You're spider bite because you're a damn dollar store Spider-Man. So as spider bite. And on top of that too, you tried to pull rank on the way that everything was supposed to run. And then you told a Black Spider-Man that he wasn't supposed to belong there. Then you had all of your tools go and then tried to convince him that he was wrong or that he needed to have his dad killed in order to be able to fix everything. So then what they'll do is they'll take these little extreme agendas and tell Black folks that they need to have all these things happen in order for them to be able to make things right. So it's very similar to the Black American plight and the fact that they're trying to erase our culture and the fact that they're trying to lie about who we are racially. And then it's hypocritical because a lot of them are not actual Americans, but Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, are the only real non-immigrants in America. So that's the problem, is that this story was trying to tell that. But anybody who doesn't really look at allegories wouldn't really understand that that's what they were trying to do with the Miguel O'Hara storyline. They would just see it as a thing of, oh, Miguel was a polarizing figure because he's not really a villain. He's somebody who is an anti-hero or somebody who was just misguided. They try to throw him in the same category as a Killmonger or even a Magneto, and he's not even on their level. He's just dead ass wrong. He's tethering it up. This is literally white supremacy with damn fajitas on top. Anyway, y'all, that's all I had to say for this video. I got a lot more interesting videos to come, so I hope you continue to check me out and everything that I have to say. And make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like, make sure that you do everything that you can to share this video with your friends, family, and everybody else who you think would enjoy what I have to say. Anyway, y'all, I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all's day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.